1. Breach, breach, breach.
Greetings and salutations. So I've decided to share another anecdote from the saga that has been my life. Doing this just because I guess some of y'all find it a little comedic. But take you back. This time I'm going to take you back to, I was probably 16, 17 years old. Probably 17 because Trey was driving his Ranger at the time. So 17 years old in the summer. I think it was the summer. It was warm enough for me to be wearing shorts. So back when I was a kid, there was a movie that I liked watching. I think it was Christian Slater that was in it. It's called Gleaming the Cube. Got another story I'll share, but in this movie, they rode around on skateboards, and in one of the things they did on the skateboards, I believe they called it sketching, they would grab a hold of a moving vehicle and let the moving vehicle pull them down the road and slingshot off of it, or whatever the case may have been. Well, I wasn't much of a skateboarder. Didn't really put a whole lot of time and effort into it, but at the same time, the time that I did, it usually failed miserably. But one thing that I did wind up doing, at least partly decent, was during those times, rollerblades were starting to make a good come, or an outbreak. I was used to roller skates, having four wheels on each foot, and I loved them. I loved roller skates, man. I remember being at the skating rink, crossing my feet over, going real fast and everything like that. Wasn't quite good enough to dance on them. Might have had something to do with the fact that I suck at dancing, but I loved roller skates. Well, roller skates were fading away at the time, and we were seeing the new era of rollerblades coming in. So, like a lot of kids during that time, I wound up telling my mom, I'd really like to get some rollerblades. It just seems like it's so much fun, inline skating. So, Mama eventually wound up buying me a pair. Now, in saying that, as a parent now, I know Mama bought me what she could. At the time, especially not really knowing what she was going after, but she bought me the best she could. But to be honest, they were definitely starter skates, and they weren't the best ones for the job. To kind of give you an idea of what they were, so they looked like your regular inline skates, rollerblades, and they had this plastic mold that looked, like plastic netting, big wide strips that come up from the side and other pieces crossed over, that was split up the middle and had a tension strap. So if you wanted them tighter, you just slide the buckle back a little more, flip it over to the other side, and lock it into place. And it did that from the toe all the way up. And inside of that was this padded boot, and you'd slide your foot in this padded boot, slide that padded boot down inside the skate, lock your buckles in, and away you'd go. There were obviously some better options at the time, much like the roller skates, one that was pretty much a boot that you attached to your foot, as opposed to what I had. But at the same time, I enjoyed the benefits of it. Of when my feet started hurting from the learning, I was able to pop the clips off and slide my boot out real quick and just walk around in my boots, the little padded boot. Well, I wound up, using those quite a bit. Trey and I didn't live too far from each other, and I would take a pair of shoes, tie the laces together, throw them over my shoulder, and go out on the road, and I would skate from my house to Trey's dirt road, where I would then take my shoes off, or take my shoes, put my shoes on, hold my rollerblades, and walk down his dirt road to his house. For those of you who haven't tried, yeah, you can't rollerblade on dirt. I found that one out in the hard way. You could probably imagine how that went. But so I was on these things a lot. It got to the point where my feet didn't really hurt all that much, with the blade or the wheels pressing right in the middle of the foot. My ankles got a lot stronger and balancing. So I was getting pretty decent at it. I don't think I ever got to as good as I was on the roller skates, but I got pretty decent at it. Fast forward, I'm doing pretty decent on my rollerblades at this time. And Trey and I had the idea, what if we recreate Gleaming the Cube? What if we do that? And I was down for it. It seemed simple enough. And as was many of the cases and the adventures that Trey and I went on, I was usually the one taking some of the risks. Now, I will say he did take some of the more dangerous ones, but this one pretty much ranks right on up there. So it was his idea that we'd use his truck, his Ford Ranger, had the exhaust leak, the classic Ford Ranger sound, and we'd go out there to the road that attached to his dirt road, and I'd hold on to the tailgate, he'd start going, and we'd just kind of putt down the road just to kind of see, get a feel for it and all that. I honestly didn't see anything wrong. I didn't see anything wrong with that idea at all. I was going to get to reenact one of my favorite movies at the time. I was going to do something that I thought was cool, and quite honestly, if any other kids saw me doing it, they'd probably think it's pretty cool too. And I was all about gaining some kind of notoriety at the time because I was a bit of a nerd. So we go out to the road, I'm riding in the back of the truck, get there, I put my rollerblades on, and we're sitting there and put the tailgate up, and I told Trey, look, don't go fast. He said, okay, no problem. He said, but I'll speed, when you tell me to, I'll speed up a little bit more each time. I said, okay, trust me, I got you. Something along those lines. All I really remember as far as what he said was trust me, which was a common phrase that I should have picked up on the time that one of us was going to get in trouble or hurt. It's usually the case. If the words trust me come out of his mouth, that's what happened. So here we are. He says, trust me. I get back there. I'm holding on to the tailgate of the truck and I'm situated. And I said, okay, go. So here he goes. He pressed the accelerator on his Ford Ranger and that's kind of the stupid sound that thing made. He gets up to whatever speed we were going, and I was comfortable with it. Feet were good and solid, and we're going down the road. Well, I'm feeling good about myself. He goes, "You good?" And I said, "I'm good." So he goes a little bit faster, and I hear the exhaust speed up a little more, so I know we're going to be speeding up, and true to form, we do. Well, we're getting on down this road, and I don't know how fast we were going. I know it was way faster than what I could rollerblade without the assistance of the truck. And we're going down this road when all of a sudden it dawns on me. This isn't a smooth asphalt road. This is it was like they wanted it to be asphalt. I want to say tar and gravel. It may have been tar and gravel. I know you'd hit the occasional rock that was jutting up from it, or at least I would. Y'all probably didn't feel it in your trucks or cars, but when you're on hard plastic wheels and holding on to the back of the Ford Ranger, those rocks felt like speed bumps. And we're going along, and I'm starting to hit these rocks. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'm concerned, and Trey's driving. We're going along, and he says, are you good? Something along those lines. And I want to say I said no. I want to say that I said, no, stop. That's not what happened. What Trey heard, if you guys have watched the movie Dukes of Hazzard, guy that played Stifler and Johnny Knoxville, when he's on the safe, and he says, no, Bo, no, and he hits the gas and he goes, I said no, Bo, no. He said, I thought you said go, Bo, go. It's kind of one of those situations. I said no, stop, and what he heard was, yeah, go. So he lays on the gas. And so here we are going down this road, and I don't know how fast we were going. I just know we were going extremely too fast. And that's coming from my perspective, holding on to the back of this Ford Ranger going down this roadway on these rollerblades. Well, as if these rocks sticking up out of this road wasn't bad enough, what added to the excitement that was to come was the fact that you've seen it on YouTube videos with guys on motorcycles or even pickup trucks, the death wobble, when the steering wheel or the handlebars just start. Yeah, that happened to the skates on my feet on the road behind this Ford Ranger that's zipping down the roadway now. So as we're going down this road and Trey's picked up speed, all of a sudden I noticed that my skates are starting to wobble. I feel them trembling, and it's more than what it was on the tar and gravel road. These skates start violently shaking to the point where there's obvious. I know those of you who aren't watching the video can't see my hands, but I'm waving my hands side to side. But these things are now starting to shake violently, and I'm starting to get more boisterous and trying to get Trey to stop, and I think he was laughing. I remember looking up at one point, I could see his teeth, and he wasn't saying anything, so I'm assuming he was laughing at this point, because he was probably looking in the rearview mirror and seeing the terror on my face and was getting a good chuckle out of that. So we're going down the road, and I don't know if he sped up. I feel like he sped up because the violent shaking of the skates stopped, primarily because the toes of the skates turned completely inwards and have now launched my feet behind me. So I go from holding onto the tailgate with my arms slightly bent and having a good time to now reenacting Superman. My feet have left the road. They are flown up behind me. My arms are fully extended. And I imagine this probably was, maybe a millisecond of time, because I did weigh a little bit. So I imagine gravity kicked in. And the Ford Ranger wasn't that fast. But at this point in time, it felt like it was an eternity. As soon as those wheels turned in, it was like, yick. As soon as those wheels turned in, my feet flew up behind me. I'm reenacting Superman on the back of this tailgate. And all I could think of was, this is how I die. I am now going to die. But as luck would have it, instead of dying, I managed to pull myself to the tailgate, lock my elbows over the tailgate, at which point I began to violently scream at Trey from the back of his truck. Now, in my mind, I know I had this, manly voice that was, full of anger and bass and all that, but what it probably sounded like was, it was probably me just sounding like some little girl screaming going down the roadway. Eventually, my feet come back down to the ground. My feet have turned completely sideways. Now they're pointing the opposite direction. And I'm now being dragged behind this Ford Ranger down the road. And of course, like most things, it doesn't stop on a dime. So Trey does eventually start to press on the brakes and comes to a stop. And, after I get my wits about me and finally figure out how to work my feet again, I get my feet up under me and pull the tailgate down, sit down. Now every single wheel on both skates have now got this nice 45-degree angle ground into the side of each wheel. So what once was a nice round wheel is now a nice 45-degree angle on one side, which also included the plastic boot, as well as the screw heads that attach the wheels to the skates. They all had a nice filed edge to them as well. And one would think that this one situation alone would be enough to, cause me and Trey to realize, hey, stupid, this isn't a good idea. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. As with many of the things that Trey and I did throughout our younger years, we decided to find what the problem was. Now, as an adult, the problem was two teenage kids decided to reenact a scene from a movie and almost got one, i.e., me, killed. But to us, that wasn't what the problem. The problem was much simpler than that. The problem was we were on the wrong surface. We were on the wrong surface for that particular activity. After all, we went back and watched Gleaming the Cube to see why it worked for them on skateboards and why it didn't work for us. And we noticed an immediate difference. The difference was the road was different. They had a nice smooth road to ride down. We were trying it on tar and gravel. Clearly that's what the problem was, and it was a simple fix. A very simple fix. As fortune would have it, we both had jobs. We both worked at Piggly Wiggly, a grocery store in our local area at the time. We both worked there, so we had our own money. So I didn't have to have Mama buy me a new set of skates, which was going to have to happen now that mine were now, grounded a 45-degree angle on the interior portion. So I wound up going and buying a set of rollerblades that I liked. It was the nice boot attached to the blades, laced up. They looked a little better. I didn't feel as much of a nerd with them. So here we go. We both got our new rollerblades, and during those days, we both spent a lot of time closing up the store. The store closed at 10 o'clock, I think it was. And, we would finish our work inside the store, hang out in the parking lot, and then we'd drive back to our hometown and go home. Well, that wasn't the plan this time. And Trey got off, I think, an hour or so before I did. So he went and did whatever Trey did. I'm sure it was wholesome, Mom and Dad. But Trey went and did whatever he did. And when I got off work, he come back and was waiting for me in the parking lot because we had planned this. We knew it was going to happen that night. See, at the time, Piggly Wiggly had not long before changed over to the new store. Now, it was in the same parking lot, the same plaza, but they had changed over to a new store, which meant new parking lot. Nice smooth asphalt, nice smooth surface. And it was perfect because the length of the entire parking lot for the plaza provided plenty of room for said activity. We had plenty of room to get the truck up to speed, but this time I was going to be smarter because Trey told me, I didn't hear you. So this time, instead of hanging on to the tailgate, I'm going to hang on to the side mirror and the driver's side door. That way, when things start to go afoul, I can look directly at his face and say, stop. There's no reason he can't hear me, and he's my friend. This is now my brother who's not going to do anything to get me hurt. He can hear me, he can stop. So I get off work, run outside, get in my vehicle, swap out my shoes to my nice new rollerblades, and I skate around a little bit in the parking lot to kind of get my feet adjusted because I've been walking on that tile floor all night. Get my feet good and adjusted, and Trey says, you ready? Yeah. I skate over to his truck and I grab a hold of the driver's side mirror and I grab a hold of the door and I said, all right, let's go around the parking lot and I just want to get the feel of it. I'm smarter. I learned from the last time. We're going to try the surface out. We're going to do a couple little test runs. Because this time, not only were we planning to successfully complete me being pulled by the vehicle, but we're also going to see if the slingshot thing worked. It didn't. We seen it on TV, but we didn't know if it actually worked, and we were going to find that out. We were going to test the physics of this and see if it actually worked. So here we go. I'm holding on to the driver's side of the truck. He's putting around the parking lot. Everything feels good. The surface is nice and smooth. The skates feel good. I tell him to go ahead and pick up some speed. I don't know how fast we were going, but it felt like we were going similar speeds as the last time when it failed. Everything was smooth. The skates were solid. I was comfortable. I was confident. I was ready to do this. no failures this time. We're good to go. The mere fact of the matter of, I didn't think about the fact that if I had a failure like I did last time, the tires of the truck are now right beside me. So he could easily run over me. Never crossed my mind. As an adult, easy for me to think about that. Didn't cross my mind at the time. Only thing that was going through my mind is I wanted this to work. I wanted to be successful at this. Today was the day we were recreating Gleaming the Cube just as we saw it, just on rollerblades. So here we are, we make our lap, we go down to the far end of the parking lot, we get down there, we're set up, and Trey says, "You ready?" I said, "Yep, hit it." Trey punches the gas on the Ranger, and here we go, and I say tearing across the parking lot, it's a Ford Ranger. But we start tearing across this parking lot, and we're picking up speed. And we had previously discussed that when we got in front of the Piggly Wiggly, I would tell him now, and that's when he would jam the brakes, and I would pull myself forward, slingshotting past the vehicle at just this outrageous speed. And this was the plan. So here we are, we've passed the Goodwill, we're coming up on I think it was a Rite Aid at the time, we're coming up on the Rite Aid, which meant right after that was the start of the buggies for the Piggly Wiggly and the Coke machine. So here we go, we're right there at it. We're passing the Rite Aid, we're getting to the buggies, and just as we get to the front entrance of the door, I said, "Now." Trey stabbed the brakes on that Ford Ranger, and I heaved myself just as hard as I could. And I'll be damned if it didn't work. Guys, that worked. The physics worked. As soon as I pulled myself and he hit the brakes, I shot away from that Ford Ranger like I come out the barrel of a gun. The wheels on those rollerblades were just a buzzing as we were going across the parking lot. This was amazing. I'm now crossing in front of the crossing in front of Piggly Wiggly at just some ungodly speed, at least from my interpretation of it. And I'm like, you know what? What I've always seen skiers do is, to get that more aerodynamic feel and to cut back on that wind resistance, they kind of tuck down a little bit, pick up some more speed. So that's what I did. I started to crouch down. I'm hunched over. My elbows are in. I'm getting as small as I can really feel comfortable getting. And I'm just zipping across this parking lot. And everything was perfect. The wheels weren't shaking. There was no death wobble going on. I wasn't scared. I was no longer near the truck. Everything was going perfect. And I had already practiced because the rollerblades, the brake pads were on the rear, at least on the ones we had. The brake pads were on the rear. So I'd already practiced, putting that rear brake down so I could slow down and be safe and all that. And I knew that at some point the parking lot ended. Now, they were starting a new roadway on the other side of the parking lot, and they had an extension from the parking lot headed over there. So I had a little bit more space, and I planned on using all of it. So I'm going across this, and I'm starting to look ahead of me. Now, mind you, this is 11:30 at night. Parking lot lights are off. The only lights I had, was what little bit of light was coming from the store and the nice dim headlights from the Ford Ranger. So as I'm going across this parking lot, I've now passed the far end of the store, and I'm, going past the other side for the buggy return over there. And I'm starting to think, okay, well, the parking lot ends here. I need to start applying brakes here. I'm running through all these things, at lightning fast speeds as we do when we're thinking about these things. And as I'm starting to look ahead, I start to notice that there's something that I didn't recognize. What was supposed to be a nice open road, it looked like there was something else there. This wasn't a nice open little piece of road that was extending over anymore. There was a nice piece of road extending over, but somebody had parked something without telling me. So as I'm starting to go across and this image is starting to appear through the darkness, I noticed that it's yellow. It's yellow and it's big. What I would come to know in a matter of seconds, as this image starts to appear in front of me, is it was a motor grader. Those big, long, yellow, usually yellow tractors that you see on dirt roads or any construction site where they're working on roads. It's got the really long blade that's hanging from the bottom of it that they scrape the roads with. Yeah, somebody parked one there. I didn't remember seeing it. And the blade was shifted over more towards me. I didn't plan that part out. I hadn't practiced turning at high speeds. And I knew these weren't ice skates, so I couldn't just spin this sucker sideways and come to a nice sliding stop before I hit it. So I'm still moving along at a pretty good clip. And as I start to see this motor grader come into picture and get more clear, and I now notice that I am on a direct collision path with this blade, I start to panic. My kind of a duck on water kind of thing. Outside, I'm sure it probably looked fine, but inside, I was panicking because I didn't know what to do. I knew I couldn't turn. I knew the brakes were going to be ineffective. And the only thing I could see happening at this point was I was going to hit this big steel blade and probably break my legs just before I flip over it and tumble face first down the asphalt all the way to the dirt, where I would eventually come to rest in some form of position, and Trey would have to come over and probably find a way to call 911. So as I'm getting closer to this thing and I'm running through all the different scenarios of things that I could probably try to do to save my own life, I finally realized that I'm not as on a direct path as I thought. I was still on enough of it that if I hit this thing, I'm going to the hospital. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So as I get close to this blade, I did the only thing that I knew possible. The only thing I could think to do was snatch my left leg up as high as I could possibly get it and hope that that was enough. And as luck would have it, just as I got to the blade, I snatched my leg up, probably higher than it had ever gone before. The skate passes over the top of this thing, and here I am balancing now on one skate only at whatever speed I was going, passing directly over this blade, slam my foot down, apply the brakes, come to a stop, and it was perfect. Everything, with the exception of the motor grader, it's a minor detail, everything had worked just as we had described. I now had an experience that was better than what I'd already imagined. Not only did I prove that I could recreate Gleaming the Cube and sketch on the side of this truck with my rollerblades, not only did I prove that I, the clumsiest of all people that I knew, could do it, but I've now added in another feature to this little stunt that I hadn't planned on and passed it flawlessly. There was no way I had this planned out. I didn't have any contingency plans for it, but this thing went flawlessly. What else could you ask for, guys? What else could you ask for? I come to a complete stop. I'm breathing real heavy, super excited about what happens. Trey comes pulling up on the Ford Ranger, and oh my God, I didn't know the tractor was there. And I didn't know it was there either. So everything worked out. And I will say that unless Trey remembers something I don't, that was probably the last time we ever pulled that particular stunt. But that's a fond memory in my life. And now you guys can share in that with me. So there you go. Don't watch too much TV. And you got teenage boys, keep an eye on them. We're pretty stupid. At least I was. Not much different now. All right, guys. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you listening. And we'll do some more. Okay. Hope you guys are having a good time with it. I know I am. And till the next time, be safe. Bye.